Today, I want to talk about fruit. And specifically, I want to talk about why the story underlying fruit is actually the story of the world that we inhabit. It's a story of economics, it's the story about tyranny, and it's the story about possible scary diseases, pandemics that could change the world. But I want to start by asking the question, what is the world's favourite fruit? And the interesting thing here is, you might well know the answer, but the interesting thing is how this has changed just in the last few decades. So back in the 1970s, 1980s, at least in the UK and many other parts of the world, it was all about apples. Apples were by far and away the most popular fruit, and this is just showing you the number that we consume each week. Apples there, bananas and oranges in second and third place, quite distant second and third place. But look at what happened next. So into the 80s, into the 90s, the 2000s, the apples slightly trended downwards, oranges as well. But look at bananas. Look at this extraordinary breakneck rise in banana consumption in the UK, to the extent that by 1996, the era of Cool Britannia, it was also the era, we didn't really know this at the time, of King Banana. Bananas becoming the most popular fruits in the UK, leapfrogging apples, and for that matter, oranges. And it's worth just asking the question, why did this happen? Did we suddenly discover this appetite for bananas? Or was it something else? And I want to suggest it was something else. It was a deeper story about economics and about trade and about this as well. So this is basically showing you, this is our total imports of fruits ranked. And there you can see, this is just in the last few months, there's bananas right at the top, double mandarins in terms of the kilograms or the tonnage of bananas we're importing. Bananas, mandarins, grapes, oranges, apples, watermelons, lemons, avocados, technically a fruit. But that's the weight of stuff, just physical weight of stuff we're bringing into the country. Now, same thing, but look at the price we actually pay for it. Look at this. That's the price that we pay. And what's the striking thing about this? At the top, it's grapes, because grapes are expensive and strawberries are expensive. Bananas, despite the fact that we consume far more of them than anything else, they're really quite cheap. And when you think about it fundamentally, that's a bit odd, isn't it? Because bananas, we can't grow bananas here in this country. It takes a lot of work to grow a banana. And, how's that happened? What I like to think about this is I like to think about this being the apple-banana paradox. And here's a really good way of showing you what's going on. There's apples, there's bananas, it's the apple-banana paradox, as you can see. I prefer charts, though. Charts are a better way of looking at this. And this is a chart showing you the price of apples and bananas over time, all the way back to the 1960s, kilogram of each, and how they have basically risen from the 1960s, 70s, 80s, 90s. They mostly rose in lockstep with each other. So apples were just about as expensive as bananas per kilogram. But look at what happened next. The price of apples went up and up and up and up. But look at what happened to the price of bananas. It basically flatlined, to the extent that bananas are basically as cheap now as they were a few decades ago. Apples much more expensive. And I think this is a massive part of the explanation for why bananas are our favourite fruit. They are just really, really cheap. And like I say, that is a paradox, given that most bananas are grown a long, long way away. So they're grown in places like the Caribbean, Latin America, Africa as well, a lot of them in Asia as well. But the majority that come across to the UK and to Europe, and the majority that go across to North America, they're grown in Latin America. And they're grown in places like, well, in the UK, it's Colombia and Costa Rica. They get shipped across. It takes roughly 2 to 3 weeks in a ship to go across the Atlantic. When I talk about ship, these are known as reefers. So each of these is a refrigerated container containing, well, lots of bananas. We went, by the way, to the Fife. This is a Fife ship. We went to the Fife's location in the UK where they take those bananas, and when they come out of these containers, having been brought across from Latin America, that is more or less what they look like. So they are completely green. They actually have a chart of 7 different gradations of colour of different types of bananas. This is them when they've just come in, and they are rock hard at this point because they've been shipped across. And this is actually quite significant, okay, because this type of banana is, you may think, okay, banana, there's just, it's one type of banana. Actually, there are many, thousands of different varieties of banana around the world. This is the Barangan. This is before we even talk about plantains. That's the Barangan. That's the red banana. You've got the ladyfinger over there. You've got my personal favourite here. Look at the beautiful praying hand banana. Isn't that gorgeous? And then you have this one. It's known as the Gros Michel. And the Gros Michel, Big Mike, as it's sometimes known, is incredibly significant economically and historically, because this was the banana that basically proved that you could grow bananas on one side of the world and ship them across to the other side of the world economically. Because if you take a Gros Michel and you chop it off a tree and you put it into one of those refrigerated containers and then send it over the ocean, 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks, it will turn up looking green. It can get kind of ripened in that other country, and it'll be rather nice. In fact, actually, the Gros Michel is a delicious banana, really sweet. It's kind of the archetype of bananas. Banana flavorings are based on the Gros Michel. And the reason this is all kind of significant, particularly for a modern viewer, is that these days we don't consume many Gros Michels because much of the global crop of Gros Michels was basically wiped out. There was a disease known as Fusarium wilt, which, as you can see, basically kills banana plants. And Fusarium wilt, which kind of eats away at the inside. It's a nasty kind of disease that's spread around. And part of the reason it kind of spread around is because all of these bananas are basically clones of each other. So it's an enormous monoculture. So if you get one disease like this, it can spread like wildfire. And that's basically what it did. And it spread in a slightly terrifying way. This is showing you the spread of Fusarium wilt R1, which is the one that did for the Gros Michel, around the world, from the 1800s through to the kind of early 1900s to 1940, 1950. And at this point here, banana producers were like, well, panicking, because it was all about the Gros Michel. 99% of all bananas being traded around the world were this single variety, the Gros Michel, and it was being, in commercial terms at least, wiped out. So they needed to find an alternative banana to save the day. And this is what they came up with. This is known as the Cavendish. It's an old variety that was essentially brought back. And it is, like the Gros Michel, one of those bananas you can chop off a tree, you can put it into a container, you can send it across the ocean, and it will turn up, and it won't be like mush, because most of these other bananas just didn't travel. This travels. The slight downside of the Cavendish, it's not quite as sweet and succulent as the Gros Michel, they say. I've never actually tasted a Gros Michel. Let me know if you have. But it could actually replace it from an economic standpoint. And this variety, the Cavendish, which if you've eaten a banana recently, it is the Cavendish. It's 99% of all bananas that we produce, genetically identical. This is part of the explanation for why bananas are so cheap, because it's so good at being shipped around the world. But the downside, the sting to this tale, is we could be facing another banana apocalypse. That's what happened to Gros Michel, this big spread of this disease around the world. And look, there is another type of wilt, which is starting to spread around the world. It's called TR4. And this one, that affects the Cavendish. So that affects that single variety of banana that we all depend on these days, if you like bananas. That's rising and rising. A lot of people are wondering, is the same thing that happened to the Gros Michel going to happen to the Cavendish? Is it basically going to be wiped out? It does look a little bit scary. The thing to cling on to here is that hopefully we'll be able to find some other type of variety. And on that, I kind of think of this chart quite a bit, because this is basically showing you where most bananas were produced in the 1960s, and which is to say, it was kind of Latin America, South America, Central America were the big ones. But since then, what's interesting about the banana market is that things have really shifted. So actually now it's Asia that totally dominates banana production, particularly India, dominating banana production around the world. And maybe if there's a replacement for the Cavendish, it might well have to come from there. But we just don't know. We don't know how fast this disease is spreading. We don't know what it's going to do. And that is one of the kind of scary things you realise when you peel away the surface of everyday objects, look underneath, and learn the stories about the world around us. And that's what we're trying to do in our new podcast, Stuff Matters, with me, Ed Conway, and the latest episode, it's about bananas.